Hi, I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. It is Wednesday, New Year's Day. Happy New Year. And 2025 has got off to a very wet start. It's raining outside, so pretty horrible. So what I'm doing is I'm doing some indoor jobs. I have quite a few frames. Well, actually, compared to most years, I have very few frames to deal with here. Basically, what I'm looking at is frames that have been partially built or not built at all. And they've got a wax coating on, or at least they had a wax coating on. But it's been in the hive. These supers have been in the hive for a month or two, and the bees will have repurposed the wax to a degree. They're probably in during a dearth, and then when the honey, with no honey flow, bees will not build the wax out very well, and they repurpose the wax from various places, and you end up with a sheet of plastic foundation with relatively little wax coating on it. Now, this year we had a terrific honey flow in the fall, so I've got very little of this, but I still have 10-15 supers worth of foundation to recoat with wax. This year I got a lot of comb built because of that honey flow, so every super I had on the hives at the time pretty much got filled up with comb and with honey. These are ones that came off maybe a bit early, or maybe frames that were on the edges that didn't have the foundation, they'd already had the wax coating taken off. So I'm going to be taking these frames and putting a new coat of wax on them, because bees will build on these plastic foundations as long as there's a decent coating of wax on them. And this is one way to be sure you do have that good coating of wax. So I've got some honey supers there. In particular, I'm interested in getting my deep frames done. I've got some old shallow ones here that I took out to make comb honey, so I could do with putting a new coating on them. So a few more boxes of foundation to be done. So I'm going to get on with those, and I'll show you how I do it. What I actually use is my sort of second rate wax, the wax that when I was processing blocks of wax, it was stuff that floated to the top. It may have had a few wax moths attack it since, but it's just dirty wax, not clean enough, not good enough for my first grade stuff, or lip balms or hand creams or selling wax. I use this for myself, and what I'll do is I will take chunks of it, dirt and all, put it into a crock pot, and that's going to get things melted. I've got a little, about 3-inch paint roller here. I'm just improvising. I'm using a normal paint roller handle, but I've got a small frame here, so basically a small roller. So we're going to use that to coat these frames. So let me show you what I do. So I'm going to take this roll. I've already done a couple of supers worth before I realized I should do a video on it again. It's been a while. I have done videos on this in the past, but we'll cover this sort of thing again. Look, here's some comb that got partially drawn out, but hasn't got rebuilt. So I'm just going to put a coating even over the top of the partially built stuff, but in particular the bits that did not get built. And now they've got new wax with which to build new comb. So a bit more melted wax on there. Doesn't need much. I like this. Doesn't want to be so much that it fills up these holes. If it fills these holes up, there's no ridge for the bees to build on. So we're really looking to coat the ridges of the foundation. But if you've got the cells partially filled with it, that's fine, as long as you've still got this hexagonal pattern raised up from the bottom. And so these boxes, these frames, when they're done, they will be going into my nucs as I build them. So when I build my nucs in the spring, I'm going to be putting a frame of food with pollen and honey and bees, and then 2 frames of brood, and I'm going to put this here for now. 2 frames of brood, 2 frames of a frame of honey, and 2 frames of foundation. But I want to make sure that the foundation has an adequate amount of wax on it, because if I put this old foundation straight in there, they might build on it very, very slowly, but now that it's got a coating of wax on it, that won't be an inhibition at all. So we'll get good building out. Now, ideally, I would do this in the spring, because the bees love this freshly applied wax when it's nice and soft. And this wax will dry and harden somewhat between now and the spring. But I've got time now, and in the spring, I don't have time. So I've got to do a balancing act. I mean, I could have done this in the fall, back in October, and in years past I have done that. But the later I can do this, the better the bees receive these frames, and they build even faster with soft new wax on, rather than newly applied wax, rather than wax that was applied a year ago. But basically, any foundation that you buy with beeswax on, the wax has probably been on there 6-8 months anyway. So this is certainly better than just your plain off-the-shelf wax foundation, and it's a lot heavier coating as well. There's some partially built ones. We'll just go right around that, and right over the partially built ones. That'll just sort of roughen up the surface of the wax with some new soft wax. And they're ready to go. So now take these frames, put them into a storage box, because I need these supers. I've got these deep supers I want to take and store drawn comb, which I have in a few nuke boxes, and I want to store that in my tool shed and get some anti-wax moth stuff on them. But in the meantime, so I can use these supers to hold my drawn comb, whereas this will just I'm going to put the foundation just in those cardboard boxes for short-term storage, because in only 3 to 4 months, well, 4 months, I'm going to be putting them in my hives again, which is nice. So this winter so far, it's been pretty mild. We've had a few cold days. We've only had maybe 15 inches of snow here so far. So far we're off to a mild start. Now, some of the long-range weather forecasts are suggesting some pretty wintry conditions on the way, which we would certainly expect. But some speculation about, once in 10 year snowstorms, that'll be fun. But these are all tucked up in the hives, got the cozies on, got the food supplies, so I'm not worried if we have a harsh winter. We've got plenty of resources in the hives for them. They're well insulated, so they'll cope with any issues of cold winter. What actually does as much harm is a really warm winter. When the bees start flying more, rearing brood more, they start using brood using food really quickly. In fact, it's been that mild that I've seen some brood being reared even in my observation hive, which is only like frame of bees, maybe frame and a half of bees, and I've got some brood in there, and that's early. But having said that, they're in the window of my office, and I'm keeping that office at about 60 degrees, so that's probably why, because they're being kept warmer than most colonies would be. But they could do with that extra help because it's only a tiny colony. That's what it is. It's the second roll. That's the first roll. Pretty heavy on this side, a little less heavy on this side. I'm not worried about a few bits of dirt and that sort of thing that came in with the wax. The bees will clean that stuff right off. These done. Usually best to do this with an apron on, or do it at arm's length, because you're going to cover your shirt with wax droplet spray. So then you get in trouble when it goes in the laundry. And there's beeswax, melted beeswax floating around in the laundry. You get in trouble for that, so don't do that. Do as I say, not as I do. Probably put too much on that one. So I'll probably be going around my hives in about, it's usually about a month and a half, about middle of February. I'll be going around my hives and checking the weights. My hives went into the winter pretty heavy, so I'm not expecting to be skirting starvation issues this year, but you never know. So it's always worth going through a check, making sure you've got plenty of winter patties ready, just in case. But you can keep abreast of that situation by going out on days like today when the hives are not frozen to their stands and hefting them. Just feel the weight of the hive. If the hive is starting to feel light, there's a heads up that it may be worth poking around inside and checking to see if they need any food. By poking around, I just mean opening up the top and having and quickly popping in some food. I do not mean going in there and moving frames around. I see a lot of folks go into hives and move their frames around this time of year, and I go, oh no, that hive is going to be in trouble in the cold weather at any rate. Oops. Bit too much wax on that. In March, I may also start with a bit of pollen patty. Now, if you have any issues with small hive beetles, you don't want to use much pollen patty. You only want to put enough in there that they're going to use up pretty quickly. So it may not be the most prudent idea to put pollen patties in hives if you have small hive beetle issues. Oops, this has come off. Getting too warm. This is coming apart now. But what I do is if I have any of my hives was in March, will not be getting much pollen unless we get a really warm spell. And so I'll be putting a bit of pollen substitute in there just to get them to start building up early. But you always got to be careful of using pollen patties, because you must never do it if you've got not enough honey reserves in the hive, because once you start applying pollen patties, you're going to have the bees very quickly increase population. That means an increased food consumption, and that means starvation issues if your hive isn't got lots of honey in it. Remember, pollen and nectar are very, very different things, have very different purposes. Pollen is for building up muscle with protein, whereas nectar or sugar syrup or honey is all about energy. That's the sugar supply in the hive. So this box is now full. I will store these and get on with my next frames. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, just getting some of my foundation coated with wax to make sure there's a good coating on wax. Is a good time of year to start doing it. Later in the winter is good as well. As I say, fresh coating of wax on those foundations that never got built last year. It's very important to get them to build on them this year. I'm Peter Cowan, the Bee Whisperer. See you next time.